Welcome everybody to the PNR show. My name, as always, is Paul Incho Rothrock, your host, where today we have rivalry weekend and new hires reactions. It was an excellent week and weekend of college football. Rivalry weekend, there's nothing better. There's nothing better than seeing two teams who absolutely hate each other put it all out on the field. The records go away, the trophies go away, everything. It doesn't matter. They just want to win. And it's incredible every single time. There were some great games, there were some upsets, and obviously the hires this weekend. We'll talk about some extremely huge news. But before we do that, hey, as always, as I always say, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. Last weekend we had our most views that we've had on a YouTube video yet. So again, I just want to thank you guys. That's greatly appreciated. But subscribe to the YouTube if you aren't. Go ahead and check out that channel. Share it with your friends, and go ahead and check out the Spotify as well. We're hoping to get Apple Music soon, so we'll see how that goes, or Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. I'm not sure. And also some short form content, so that'll be coming soon. And again, thank you guys so much for all of the support and how much you guys have listened to the pod. But again, it was an excellent week of college football, and we got to start with the games that were played on the field. Number 13 ranked Texas beat Texas A&M at home at DKR 27-17. It was a wild game. Marcel Reed had 2 interceptions, and this one he hurt his ankle in the first quarter. And then when you're watching it, you're thinking, okay, how is this going to affect Marcel Reed? Because obviously he's a running quarterback. If he can't run effectively with that ankle, well, he's not as effective as he should be. But it didn't seem to affect him too much. He came back the next drive, but obviously he still had the 2 interceptions. Casey Concepcion, he scored right before the half, made it a 10-3 football game. The first half was really weird. It was kind of the opposite of what I expected. When I talked about the predictions for this game, I thought it'd be a high-scoring one. You think about how Texas had played in the last weeks, and obviously how Texas A&M had played all season long. These two teams were offensive domination, right? That's what they did. These two teams were led by the offense, but it was really the defense for both of these football teams that won them the game. And obviously, Texas started to get going offensively, but all game, the Texas defense was good. They played really well, only giving up 10 points in the first half. I think if you talked to Sark before that game and you said we're only going to give up 10 points to Texas A&M in the first half, he'd take it. He'd take it. Absolutely. The Texas offense was stagnant in the first half. Arch Manning, as he has been kind of throughout the year, was a little inaccurate. There was a lot of pressure in his face. And obviously, it was the run game that could not get going. That was a big part of the first half. But the second half is where everything changed for the Longhorns at home. There was back-to-back Texas A&M 3-and-outs. The defense for Texas went lights out, and then Quinn Travion Wisner, the running back for Texas, he started to get going. He had a 60-yard run that absolutely blew it open. He had another 20-yard run. He had 155 yards today on 19 carries. He's an excellent player, and finally the Texas offense was able to get going. This is something we've been waiting for throughout the season. At times they have really great games and they have spurts where they go crazy, but it's always something. We've been waiting the whole season, whether it's the defense to get going or the offense to get going or even the special teams to get going. I think today against Texas A&M, they really put it all together. Arch Manning was able to run the ball. When he had that scramble up the middle, that was when you really knew, okay, he's starting to feel it. And then he just started scrambling again and again, and Texas A&M could not contain the Texas offense. Arch Manning, he really turned the tide when he had that 29-yard touchdown pass to Ryan Wingo. And then the announcer said it and everyone could feel it. It was kind of a sigh of relief for Manning. Finally, he got going. And finally he was able to say, okay, we've got this. They were up at that point. He got comfortable. The Texas defense forced Marcel Reed to make some bad throws. And then Texas, they sealed the deal with a Michael Taft interception. So the Texas Longhorns, an incredible win at home. They beat what was the number 3 team in the country. They played an excellent game. And Arch Manning, and this Texas Longhorns team is looking to go to the college football playoffs. At this point, they're 9-3. They're 3-2 in top 25 games. They certainly have a case for the playoffs, and that was the case that Steve Sarkisian made. After the game, he talked about that his team should be in the playoffs. His team has played one of the hardest strength of schedules in the country. His team has gone through an absolute gauntlet, and to only come out of it with 3 losses, I'll say, certainly impressive. Certainly impressive. Steve Sarkisian has a point. Texas is tied with Georgia for the most ranked wins in the country. They're the only team in the playoff discussion with a top 10 strength of schedule. They're number 8 in the country, and they're ranked 13th in the college football playoff poll, which means at this time, remember the college football playoff poll came out last night, so at this time, they would not make the playoffs despite being tied with Georgia for the most ranked wins, despite having a top 10 strength of schedule, despite scheduling Ohio State and only losing by 7 on the road. This was Steve Sarkisian talking about the Ohio State game. He said, my point is, why the hell would I play that game next year? And he's right. He's absolutely right, because for Texas to schedule Ohio State, obviously they're thinking they want to win that game. But even though they lost it, and in the manner that they lost it, by 7 points to the best team in the country by far, if Texas is 10-2 with their only losses being the Florida and Georgia, they would be firmly in. There would be a discussion for them to be in the top 5. They would easily be above Texas A&M, who they just beat. Remember, they beat Oklahoma. It's wild to me how the committee refuses to change their ideology. To me, the committee stays so stuck in records. They stay so stuck in quote-unquote eye test, but they fail to actually look at the teams and their resumes, because Texas has one of the best resumes in the country. See, reality is, if that we don't support these teams scheduling good opponents, good non-conference opponents, then they won't. And Texas certainly won't next year. That's why we saw Alabama, instead of scheduling USF, guess who they scheduled? Chattanooga, right? They switched that game for next year. Why? Because the committee does not care about your strength of schedule. They don't care about who you schedule, who you put forth, and who you play, as long as you have a nice record. The committee is saying if you have 3 losses, no matter who you play, no matter how you look in games, no matter how you look, it doesn't matter. Texas has won 6 of their 7 last games. I think this was an interesting stat for me. Here's the teams with a better strength of schedule than Texas. Wisconsin, 4-8 and 14th in the Big Ten. Florida, 4-8, 11th in the SEC. Purdue, 2-10, 18th in the Big Ten. UCLA, 3-9, 12th in the Big Ten. Arkansas, 2-10, 16th in the SEC. LSU, 7-5, 10th in the SEC. And South Carolina, who is 13th in the SEC. Texas is 9-3, 5th in the SEC. Think about that. Top 5 in the best conference in the country with 3 ranked wins. That's tied for the most in the country. If I'm the playoff committee, I'm putting the Texas Longhorns in the playoff. I don't think you can look at that resume, one that beat Oklahoma, so they should be ranked above Oklahoma, one that beat Texas A&M. You know, you can debate on whether they should be above Texas A&M, but they beat them head-to-head. That's plain and simple, and they really dominated the whole second half of that game. Texas is one of the top 11 best teams in the country, and they should be in the mix for the playoffs. We'll see how that shakes out. It's seeming like they won't be in it, but again, they should be. Let's talk about the game, the best rivalry in all of sports, Michigan and Ohio State. This one was in Ann Arbor, and Michigan lost at home for the first time since 2019. Michigan had 9, Ohio State had 27. Correction, this wasn't the first time that Ohio State beat Michigan on the road. This was the first time Ohio State had won since 2019. They didn't play in 2020, but it had been 4 consecutive years that the Michigan Wolverines beat the Ohio State Buckeyes. And firstly, I just want to say congratulations to Ryan Day. Congratulations to his family and the players. Listen, he I won't say he deserved it, but after all that Ryan Day has been through, after all that he and his family went through last year, I think he does deserve it. You know, they faced so many challenges and they faced so much scrutiny and hate that was just unwarranted after last year. And I think it's just a big sigh of relief for that fan base, a big sigh of relief for his family. And I'm really excited for Ryan Day and what this Ohio State team can do. Ryan Day, after the game, I thought it was really incredible. He said, he could have said all the things in the world when talking to reporters. He could have talked about Jim Harbaugh. He could have talked about Sharon Moore. He could have talked about all of these cheating scandals, whatever. He could have talked about any of it. But what did he say? He said, we're going to win with humility. And he said he's just happy for the players. He's happy for the staff. That's why Ryan Day is one of the best coaches in all of college football, if not the best. And again, long time coming for him and the Buckeyes. Michigan early, they got going. Watching this game, the Michigan run game, they gashed Ohio State's defense. They go down, they kick a field goal, and then it's like, okay, this one might be kind of high scoring. And then the huge play. Again, it's snowing. Julian Sand, his first pass attempt, throws an interception to the Michigan defense. Unbelievable. Unreal turn of events. And I think everyone in the country, the feeling around the country is that Ohio State's going to lose again. Ohio State is going to lose to their arch rivals again. But I got to give credit to the Ohio State defense. I have to. They rallied the troops. They got another stop. They forced another field goal. And at this point, it's only 6-0. Michigan never scored a touchdown in this game at all. They only had 9 points. This Ohio State defense proved again why they are the best in the country. They are incredible. They fly around the field. Caleb Downs was incredible. Davis Igbinosun, he had 1 pass interference, which he's only had 3 this season. He's been great. I mean, Arvell Reese was incredible. There is guys all over this defense that will be in the NFL next year, that will be first-round picks. And Matt Patricia, what a job he's done with that defense. They proved once again why they're the best unit in the country. Not the best defense, but the best unit in the country. And what really got Ohio State started in this one was the Jeremiah Smith 35-yard touchdown. Now, this one was a little bit controversial, but you got to remember, it was called a touchdown on the field. If you didn't see the play, Jeremiah Smith caught it on the sideline. He bobbled the ball. And then what they said was that he held on to it, crossed the touchdown, and then bobbled it again and went out of bounds. See, the call, if they were to reverse the call, they would have said that it was Michigan football, that it was a fumble from Jeremiah Smith out the back of the end zone and Michigan football. But there was not enough evidence to overturn it. I think that's the key part of this. Remember, it was called a touchdown on the field, so they needed clear and concise evidence in order to overturn it. And from what I saw, he bobbled the football after catching it. He regained possession, crossed the end zone, and then he bobbled it. Which at that point, once you cross the end zone with possession, it's a touchdown. It doesn't matter. So regardless, Ohio State won by more than 1 touchdown. So can you really say that score completely flipped the game? You can't really say that. Would it have given Michigan momentum? Would they have been able to score? Maybe. But that's not the way the game happened. And Ohio State clearly on the field was the better team. Brandon Inniss, he scored right before half to make it 17-9. Hit the LeBron James silencer. Love that from him. And at that point, it's really it's all Ohio State. But there was a point in time where Ohio State got the ball back after the second half, and then Joel Klatt and the color commentator is saying it's a 1-score game. It's an 8-point game. All Michigan needs is just 1 stop. All they need is just 1 big play. And then Carnell Tate scores a 50-yard touchdown that very next play. Unreal. Him and Jeremiah Smith back for this game. They are just so good. 2 of the best receivers in college football. And at that point, the game was over. Bo Jackson, a freshman, had 117 yards rushing. That was more than the entire Michigan offense. I mean, my question is, does Ohio State have a single weakness? Do they have a single weakness? You can say that's, you can say that's reaching, whatever. But I don't think Ohio State has a single weakness. Julian saying finished the season with the number one completion percentage in college football history. Jeremiah Smith is the best receiver in the country, and he's coming back next year. Oh, by the way, they have the guy who's right behind him, Carnell Tate. He's the second best receiver in the country. They're now getting the run game going, so you can't say that the offense has any problems. Their offensive line doesn't give up sacks at all. Their defense is the best in the country. So what is the weakness for Ohio State? What is their weakness? They play Indiana in the Big Ten Conference Championship game. I think Indiana is the team that can most challenge Ohio State. I think that's the team who can really push Ohio State and push the envelope, and we'll see how that one goes. But again, I've seen weaknesses from Indiana. I've seen weaknesses from Alabama, from Georgia, from all of these teams. There hasn't been a single weakness all season long for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and just credit to Ryan Day and that coaching staff. As for Michigan, they'll be fine. Like, this is one of the youngest teams in the country. Their quarterback, Bryce Underwood, he's a freshman. They have Andrew Marsh on the outside, who's a freshman. They'll be completely fine. They are so young. They will continue to build with Sharon Moore and Bryce Underwood. They will continue to get better. And watch out for them next year. They could be right back there. I think they will be. And they could be a national championship contender next year. But they will have to find a different way to compete with Ohio State. I think that's evident. Because, again, you look back at the past 5 years, what Michigan has tried to do is to outmuscle and outman Ohio State and just play their game. And obviously, that's worked. The past 4 years, it's worked. But this year, it didn't. And it was clear that Ohio State was the more physical, more dominant, was the better run team. For the past 25 years, the team that has rushed better has won the football game. And so I think Michigan next year in this game is going to have to get more dynamic. They're going to have to be a little bit more sound defensively, but it obviously starts offensively. Only 9 points in this game. They've got to be more dynamic. Bryce Underwood will become a better passer, and I believe in the Michigan offense and what they will do next year. They shouldn't have to worry. It's been 4 years of them winning. It was time for Ohio State. But credit, again, to the Buckeyes. How about the scare in Jordan-Hare? Alabama survives Auburn 27-20 in the Iron Bowl. One of the best rivalries in all of college football and all of sports, Alabama and Auburn. It's always a great one. This one was at Auburn at night. Just an incredible environment, one of the most underrated in the sport. Just a really great game. But at first, it wasn't. At first, Alabama dominated. They were up 17-0 early in this one. But credit for Auburn for clawing back. Credit for them. Malcolm Simmons, he caught a 64-yard touchdown to inch closer. And that place absolutely erupted. At that point, the momentum completely shifted. It was a one-score football game. And then Auburn ties the game. And Alabama is now scrambling, trying to find points. Scrambling, trying to find something so that they could win the game. And it comes down to Isaiah Horton. What a game he had. He had 3 touchdowns in this one. He scored the game-winning touchdown, and then Auburn gets the football back, and then Cam Coleman fumbles. Alabama wins the football game. It was just an incredible game. It was all that you could ask for the Iron Bowl to be, and shows why it's one of the best rivalries in all of college football. Ashton Daniels for Auburn had 367 scrimmage yards. That's right, 367. He was really the only offense for Auburn at all. They put him in an empty backfield a lot, and he was either going to run the football or he was going to pass it. And he was able to do both. But I think this is credit to Alabama. You know, a lot of times when a team goes up early and then the other team starts to fight back, it is really hard to gain back momentum. But that's exactly what Alabama did. Not an easy environment to win at all. And I think that shows more of who Alabama is rather than who they aren't. I've kind of dissed on them a lot on this show, but I think they're a very good football team. They go and face Georgia in a rematch December 6th in the SEC Conference Championship game. That is going to be an incredible one. Remember, Alabama won that game in Sanford Stadium, a couple months ago But we'll see. These are two completely different teams now. They've shifted and they've changed, so we'll see how that one goes. But Alabama certainly in a prime position to win that game. How about the weekend hires? Oh my goodness, what just an incredible week of college football. All of the drama, all of the stakes. Listen, this is what makes this sport so amazing. I talk about it every single week, and I love to talk about it, and this is why. Because all of the drama, everything that happens, it is truly the greatest sport on planet Earth, I'm telling you. But obviously, the biggest news, Lane Kiffin to LSU, goes to the arch rival of Ole Miss, takes a 7-year, $91 million contract. Unbelievable. He takes offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss with him. He takes co-offensive coordinator Joe Cox with him. He takes the GM and the football athletic director of Ole Miss all with him. He literally told them that if they don't get on the plane to go with him to LSU, that they will never have a job with him. They will never have a job. Crazy. Crazy stuff. So he takes all of those guys from Ole Miss. He just completely decimates the program. Ole Miss, by the way, is 11-1 and headed to the college football playoffs, and they will play in the playoffs. They were in the middle of the greatest season that Ole Miss has ever had in program history. Remember that. Keith Carter, the athletic director for Ole Miss, he told Lane that he cannot coach Ole Miss in the playoffs. And I honestly agree with him. I do the same thing. You know, if you want to leave to our rivals, go ahead. Go ahead and leave. But there's no way you're going to coach our team into the playoffs while we all know you're about to leave. And we're about to play you every single year. No way. Someone has to stick up for the players. See, that's what I think people forget in all of this mess and forget in all of this controversy is that the players were not stuck up for. Lane Kiffin can do whatever he wants. He's a grown man. He's an adult, right? He can make his decisions. That's what the structure of college football has set forth for him. But he never stuck up for the players, and someone had to. And so Keith Carter, that's exactly what he did. And I hate how Lane tried to switch the narrative by saying, oh, the players wanted me to continue to coach. Not true at all. Not true at all. There were reports coming from Ole Miss players that was completely false. So not only does Lane leave for LSU, the rivals who they play in the Magnolia Bowl every single year, but he lies and says that, oh, Ole Miss, they didn't want me to coach, Completely false. Completely false. The defensive coordinator, Pete Golding, will now be the head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. I think he's going to stay for them next year. He'll coach them in the playoffs. I think that's a great hire. He seems like a great guy. And obviously, all of the team is completely behind him, saying the Golding era. And at the end of the day, that's what a coach is supposed to be, right? A coach is supposed to be someone that can stick up for their players, someone that their players look up to and look after and follow. And as a leader of men, you have to be able to do that. But Lane Kiffin clearly not able to do that. My question is he ever going to be able to have enough consistency? Is he able to ever have enough credibility? As a coach, if I'm the parent of a player and Lane Kiffin comes knocking, and he says, for the next 3 to 4 years, I want to coach your kid, I'm going to say, what makes me think you're not going to leave? What makes me think you're not going to leave? Because, again, Lane Kiffin has been a part of some of the messiest exits in football history. Not just college football history, but football history. Remember, he left messy with the Las Vegas Raiders. With USC, extremely messy. With Tennessee, oh my goodness, probably the messiest exit we've ever seen. With Alabama, Nick Saban kicked him off of the team before the national championship game. And now this. So Lane Kiffin clearly has a track record of not having any credibility. And so if I'm a player, if I'm a parent of a player, that's what I'm pointing to. And I don't think he is going to have that many more resources at LSU than he thinks. Because Ole Miss completely said that they were going to back Lane Kiffin if he stayed, that they were going to give him the resources, that they were going to give him the money, that the fans were going to be there for him. He had everything in Oxford. I think it's crazy to think that he said he just couldn't win in Oxford. That's the same thing we talk about when it comes to Brian Kelly. Remember, Brian Kelly came from Notre Dame, and then he went to LSU, and he was like, I just can't win at Notre Dame. I don't have the resources. And then he gets fired at LSU. Completely false. Completely false. See, here's the thing that Lane Kiffin pointed to. He pointed to the calendar being broken. Obviously, we build rosters at the same time that we're playing playoff games in the portal, and coaches have to sign contracts before they're even playing the next season. Is the calendar broken? Yes. But did Lane handle this how he should have? No. See, I think both can be completely true at the same time. Kurt Signetti, Dan Lanning, Brent Key, Clark Lee, Kalani Sitake, and a numerous amount more coaches, they all chose to stay at their schools despite quote-unquote better opportunities. So the notion that Lane Kiffin, again, had to leave Ole Miss to win a championship, that's ridiculous. Because now we're in an era that it's more spread out, and that Indiana can win a national championship, that Texas Tech can win a national championship, that, heck, Vanderbilt could win a national championship, and certainly Ole Miss. Ole Miss could win a natty this year. They're 11-1, top of the SEC. So I just feel bad for the Ole Miss players. They were clearly left out to dry in this. They had no say whatsoever. It doesn't even seem like they had a say with whether or not Lane Kiffin was going to coach the playoffs, which they probably would have said no. That was the feeling from the room. But they should have at least gotten a say. But again, they're out left to dry. And all of these players who committed to Lane Kiffin, who committed to what he was doing in Oxford, who went to go play for him and his program, now he just leaves them out to dry. I feel for him. But guess what? LSU plays Ole Miss next year in Oxford. Grab your popcorn, get ready, kick your feet up. That's going to be an incredible one. Ole Miss will host the Tigers in the Lane Kiffin Bowl. Whew! Can't wait for that one. We thought Ole Miss Florida was the Lane Kiffin Bowl. Nope. LSU Ole Miss next year. Get your tickets. Speaking of Florida, John Summerall hired to Florida. 6 years, $44.7 million. I really love this hire for Florida. Obviously, Florida was in contention for Lane Kiffin, and a lot of their players, a lot of their fan base mostly thought that they were going to get Lane Kiffin, but it became obvious and evident that they were not going to get Lane and that they would have to look for someone else. But throughout the whole entire process, they were not solely stuck on Lane Kiffin. They were looking for other coaches as well. And one of those coaches was John Summerall. He came from Tulane. He's having a great season with them. He is 19-7 in 2 seasons with them. He went 23-4 at Troy. So clearly he's a winner. And the fan base, they struggle with this one, obviously, because of Billy Napier. He came from the Sun Belt, and he was a winner in the Sun Belt. But I think that two completely different guys. See, I think I've talked about this before, but in college football, your head coach has to fit. That's all he has to do. He has to know how to motivate players. He has to know how to scheme, obviously, know how to delegate, and he has to be the correct fit. So you can have an incredible coach, but if he doesn't fit your program and what your program wants to do and who they are at the core, it doesn't matter. See, Dan Lanning could go to Ohio State right now, but it wouldn't quite be what he's doing at Oregon. Why? Because it doesn't fit. See, coaches have to be able to fit, and I think John Summerall is a fit. Billy Napier wasn't. I think he's a great stand-up guy. He's vowed not to steal Tulane's recruits. He's told them to, stay at Tulane and to play there. I'd say to the Florida fan, I'd say give him a shot. Give John Summerall a shot, and I think you'll be happy with how it turns out. Alex Golesh, went to Auburn. He was the head coach of USF. 6 years, $44.2 million. He's also another one of these group of five coaches who is an excellent one. He completely turned around the program of USF. See, this to me is the difference between him and maybe these other hires from guys who are going to group of five and going to a bigger school. Alex Golesh was USF. Alex Golesh completely turned around that program. Before that, they were horrible. Before that, they had never been in playoff contention. But guess what? This year, they were this close to making the playoffs. This close. If you could see me right now, I'm doing pinching my fingers, saying, they're that close. We'll see if Byron Brown goes with Alex Golesh, the quarterback of USF. But they've had a great season. And I think we'll see how it turns out. I don't know if he's a fit. He doesn't quite seem like a very motivating type of guy. But what he does do well is he recruits very well. He recruits. He knows the state of Alabama a little bit, and he will certainly, I think he'll be better than Hugh Freeze. That's for sure. And then a little bit of a swap, but Brian Hartline, following Alex Golesh leaving USF, Brian Hartline goes to USF. He was the offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach of Ohio State. He will stay during their playoff run. He has had an incredible run with that football team. If you don't know who Brian Hartline is, he is one of the greatest recruiters of all time. Point blank period of all time. Look at the receivers that he has recruited and that he has turned into NFL talents. Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Emeka Ibuka, Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, Jeremiah Smith, and Carnell Tate. And there's more. Just an incredible track record of Brian Hartline and what he's done. He's a stand-up guy, family man. He'll be an incredible coach at USF, and I think he fits perfect. See, one thing about Alex Golesh is he did not recruit in the state of Florida very much, especially not in Central Florida. He liked to go around the country and recruit from there. Brian Hartline loves the state of Florida. Jeremiah Smith is from there. All of these guys, a lot of them are from Florida. So he'll know how to recruit in that area. And obviously, Brian Hartline, he's been around a winning culture. He's been around a national championship program. So he knows what it takes, and I'm happy for him. Other notable hires around the country: Oregon offensive coordinator Will Stein goes to Kentucky. That's a home run hire. Ryan Silverfield goes to Arkansas. We'll see about that one. Eric Morris comes from North Texas and goes to Oklahoma State. And by the way, Penn State still has not hired a coach. What are they doing? What is Penn State doing? I'd love to talk to a Penn State athletic director or Penn State guy right now, just anyone within that program who runs things. What are we doing? What is happening? All of these guys, and you haven't hired one of them? Remember, I talked about this in a couple of episodes ago, but Penn State, before James Franklin, wasn't exactly a hot destination. Not exactly. And so I think you got to somewhat settle for a coach, but I don't think it's going to be, settling. Obviously, with Penn State firing James Franklin, what they're looking for is a national championship, because James Franklin almost got there and couldn't quite get there, but they fired him. So they're looking for a guy they were probably looking for Will Stein. Their biggest look that they gave was to Kalani Sitake, head coach of BYU. I thought he did a great job of addressing his team and telling his team that he was staying, that he wasn't leaving. They gave him a contract, and happy for him and what he's doing there in Provo. But Penn State, they've got to get it in gear. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Folks, thank you so much for listening. As always, if you would, please share this, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify. What a weekend and what a week of college football it was. Hey, this Saturday, we've got conference championship games. We've got the playoff reveal. We have much to talk about, and I'm so grateful that you guys are here with me on this journey, and I cannot wait to see how this season turns out. But I hope you have a great day, and until next time.